November, I'll cast my first vote in a presidential election ever. The fact is, our right to vote is under attack. I've seen it. Long wait lines, people blocked from registering to vote, Texans denied our voice. Donald Trump's Republicans are making it harder for us to vote, but we won't let them get away with it. And Kamala Harris won't let them get away with it either. She's fought for our freedoms. She's fought for our voice, but we will only be heard if we vote. As the saying goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So Gen Z, let's take our seat in our democracy and cast our ballots this November for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
That's Olivia Giuliana. You may know her. She was one of the creators at the DNC, where I was last week. I'm Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy, FP Wellman. Welcome back. We are recording from home, as you can see. And if you can hear my voice, and you've known me for a while, you can hear my voice is bad because guess what? I've got COVID again. So, you know, it happens. But I wanted to do a show anyway, at least meet with you guys, because it's a very special episode, and I couldn't just stay home and not do an episode. I want to meet with you and talk about what's going on, talk about the media. Olivia Giuliana, you may know her. She's well known because she actually became somewhat famous because when Matt Gaetz, she lives in Matt Gaetz's district, and a couple of years ago, she commented online about Matt Gaetz' stance on abortion. She kind of dragged him a little bit, as Gen Zers tend to do. And Gaetz decided to comment about her body, comment about her looks, basically her being a big girl. She said, okay, Matt, you're going to be like that. I'm going to raise money off of that. And she raised, I think, a couple $1 million for abortion care organizations off of being dragged by Matt Gaetz. Since then, Olivia has become a very powerful voice in the abortion fight, women's health care. She was invited to the DNC, like me. You can see here is a headline of her there with me. She was there, like me, as one of the 200 creators that DNC brought to the convention. Kind of cool. We could talk about that. You may have seen the show last week. So I wanted to talk to you about that experience. Last week, I kind of talked to you about some of the interviews I did and all. But this week, I really want to talk to you a little bit about the media on two stories. This first story, of course, being the one about the creators at the DNC and how the political press handled us. And then we're going to talk about the latest story, the Arlington National Cemetery story, and the difference and who's going to be covering these stories. So, not going to waste too much time. Got a quick show today. I'm thrilled you're here. The most important part, this is our 100th episode. This is why I had to get in front of the camera, take some lozenges, drink some water out of a big Stanley cup, and join you, because thank you to all of you. This is our 100th studio episode of On Democracy with FP Wellman, and I couldn't stay home for that. So without any further ado, let's get on with the show. That's it. We're here. We're back in the studio home, the studio B, I guess we'll call it. Got my new On Democracy neon light that Heather bought me. It's a little bright. I gotta get something dark behind it so you can see it better. But how cool is that? For the 100th episode, our very own On Democracy light. I'm loving it. So exciting times. So let's talk about the DNC. As you know, I had the good fortune to be able to go to the Democratic National Convention last week in Chicago. You may have seen my pictures online with famous people and not so famous people, fellow creators and others. I had the most amazing experience. So let's put some perspective in here. The media had over 15,000 registered media. That's what the DNC put out. There was 15,000 registered media in Chicago for the DNC. Now, you and I understand that's not all journalists. That's all if you went to the arena there, the United Center, the entire parking lot was taken up by vans for the media. All that stuff they do is 20 or 30 people inside a van and elsewhere, and then in trucks. So the media they had wasn't just people on camera. But let's say 5,000 of them were media. They also invited 200 creators, like yours truly. And the 200 creators were there as part of the DNC's efforts to expand what comes as press. And they talked about it quite a bit. There's quite a bit of stir, but it was a big deal to have us there. Now, did we get special privileges? Some not. We got press passes. I had a press pass like everybody else. Had to get it every day, get a new one each day. It was a different one each day. They had a little creator lounge for us on the first floor, which was really a curtained off bar that was closed. They did throw food up, Chicago hot dogs. I'll probably never eat a Chicago hot dog again, fan. I love you guys. I love Chicago. I had a great time, but I'm never eating another of your hot dogs, okay? Just all there is to it. Having said that, I had a lot of Chicago hot dogs and some, like a couple of beers and some sodas. Mostly water is what we drank. And it was next to Media Row. So what did I do while I was there? I was working Media Row. That's how you got those interviews you saw on last week's show. And there was a lot of interest. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Much of the media was pissed. We were made fun of by a lot of people, okay? Here's some, you're not gonna believe this one. This is actually a short clip from, well, you'll recognize the guy.
Specifically, they may not believe the part where I went to law school but still became a content creator.
What he was talking about was they gave speaking engagements to some of these content creators. That's what that clip I opened the show with of Olivia came from. Olivia was actually given an opportunity to speak. 3 other content creators, young Americans mostly, also got chances to speak. Colbert decided to make fun of them. Now, here's what's funny about that. They did. Many of the content creators were lawyers. Several were engineers. One was a professional designer. I'm a campaign consultant, an Army veteran. We had 200 varied people from varied backgrounds, and not all of them were kids. Okay. I was there. I'm 58. You guys know that. I'm a grandpa, for God's sake. A woman I hung out with, design moms. Gabrielle is a wonderful human being. She's a mom. She actually lives in France, and she came because she's very passionate about voting rights. We had some young women who were very, very well known within Black African-American activist circles. We had a group that was there supporting Palestinian rights. We had another group that was there for Latina rights. They created a panoply of people from various backgrounds. And yes, many of them were lawyers and did content creators in their own side. I talked to somebody very famous, and I'm going to tell you a secret. This is really interesting. I'm not going to say her name, his name, just 2 of them. She's really well known. She's you'll recognize her if you've been on Instagram for a minute. Hilarious woman, very funny. She works as a waitress in her day job. I met another content creator who literally said he has 4 jobs. These folks aren't full-time Instagram personalities for the most part. Yeah, there's probably a few of those, but most everybody there, like me, have day jobs. This isn't my main job. You know, I have other jobs. I'm a campaign consultant, for God's sake. I work for a digital political consulting firm. Okay, this isn't our only job. We do this for passion. We weren't paid to go to the DNC. We went there because we wanted to be part of history and report to our audiences that we've been very fortunate to build. CBS had a piece about it. And this is what they talked about in that piece about how they wanted, why the DNC was there and what the goal was. And I'm going to let you watch this. And then I want you to kind of look at what's really interesting about this is even the DNC's perspective on who we were was a little bit off, actually. So watch this clip and I'll let you know.
For the first time ever, more than 200 content creators have been given credentials, like press credentials, to attend and cover the Democratic National Convention. The move comes as Democrats continue to try and reach out to young voters. And while polling shows many 18 to 29-year-old voters are leaning in favor of the Democratic nominee, some are worried the enthusiasm behind Kamala Harris may not actually guarantee a turnout on Election Day. So Kalen Allen is joining us. He is one of those content creators at the DNC, and he's previously participated in social media strategy sessions with the Biden administration. You know, Kalen, it's always good to see you. I gotta admit, I'm a little jelly. I mean, you're living your best life. Last time we spoke to you about Beyonce. Now you're at the DNC, and it looked like one heck of a party last night. So creators are there, and they have those official badges, just like journalists. They have access that many sort of legacy media members are going to have, including VIP interviews and studio space. how are you seeing this play out? What are you seeing other content creators and influencers doing? And what do you make of this strategy?
You know, personally, I think that the strategy is absolutely brilliant. I have had a front row seat to watching these creators actually activate and mobilize in ways that I've never seen us been able to have access before. I mean, they are absolutely working. And I think what is great about this is that we are meeting young voters where they are. But I think it even also expands far past young voters, but also the parents of these voters. And I think that is absolutely amazing.
Okay. I'm not the parent of a young voter. Well, I am a parent of a young voter, but I'm actually a creator myself. And I guarantee that most of you in my audience, because you know what? I get the YouTube stats on all of you guys who are watching and listening to this show. You're not necessarily young voters. Matter of fact, on my YouTube channel, if you look at the On Democracy YouTube channel, which amazingly, there's like 6,000 of you on there, and I appreciate that. There's not a single person subscribed under the age of 18, okay? So even the DNC representative thought that we were all young, reaching young voters. And it's something I've actually spoken about quite a bit. You guys know, you're on the MeidasTouch network, or you're here on the On Democracy network. You know, you're watching YouTube, listening to podcasts because you've become frustrated with the traditional news, and you're getting your information from us. It's incredibly proud. MeidasTouch network just hit 3 million subscribers. 3 million subscribers. Our show before the DNC had over 200,000 views of people like you who aren't necessarily young voters, but are very interested in what's going on, looking for perspective you don't get from traditional media. So I kind of laughed that even the DNC's rep who got up in front of camera to talk about the creator program wasn't actually to realize that it's more than just reaching young voters. It's activating people who aren't listening to traditional media anymore. And that's where we come in at Meidas, at On Democracy, and elsewhere. We're speaking to you about issues you care about. And look, I don't make bones. I'm not bow-siding anything. I'm here to talk about democratic issues, progressive issues, threats to our democracy, and veterans issues, whatever may come up. And so it was kind of interesting to me to see that. But I tell you what, folks, the media did not like us being there. Holy cow. They wrote story after story bashing us. Here's some on screen. Here is Wired, the influencer convention, making fun of us. They were convinced that we were eating prime rib, which is the weirdest thing because I never found a prime rib sandwich. Y'all, okay. First day of the DNC, Monday morning. I got up at 7 in my hotel, which was inside the security perimeter of the McCormick Place Convention Center, which is where the daytime activities were. I had to get my credentials that day to go into the arena that night in the McCormick Place. Now, lucky I'd gone down, I drove up Sunday from home, got my credentials that day. But I wanted to go into the McCormick Place to get some swag and stuff. I should be wearing a t-shirt or something, but I didn't. And then I wanted to start though, but I had to go to the Missouri delegation breakfast. I wanted to meet with the folks from my home state. That was at the Fairmont Hotel, 3 miles away. And so the bus wasn't working, whatever. So I took an Uber, $20 Uber to the Fairmont Hotel. I had breakfast there, hung out for a while, had to get back to the McCormick Place, $20 Uber back to McCormick. I got lucky in that one. I took the bus from that fair. They had a bus circuiting the official hotels. Got the bus to McCormick, hung out in McCormick, had to get another bus to the arena that night. I ate breakfast at 7 a.m. Once I got to the arena, it was a madhouse. We were running around. I was trying to get stories and interviews. You guys know, you saw, I spoke to Jared Moskowitz. I tried to get hold of Wes Moore. I mean, you're in the hallways trying to track people down. And then you go up to the press seats at 300 level, which is nosebleed. And you have to sit there. You'll lose your seat. So I sat there for the rest of the night. I went to the creator lounge they had for the Kamala creators, creators for Kamala. And they had nachos. So at 9 o'clock, I had some nachos with some chicken thrown on them. And that was all I ate on day one. My Uber dropped me off at the White Castle, but there was a line at the door. So I just walked back to my hotel. I got some pretzels and went to bed at 2 a.m. So it wasn't a VIP experience as Politico. Politico would have you believe, of course, our friends, the New York Times, it was crazy. I mean, they just went on and on about us getting special privileges they didn't get. One of the young women who was our coordinator for this tweeted today that radar reporters approached her all the time asking about, well, what's a creator? Why'd you guys do this? but print reporters accosted her. She literally had print reporters in her face yelling at her about why we had special privileges, why we were able to plug our phones in and charge them, where they had to find an outlet in a hallway. The last night of the DNC, they decided they all wanted to save seats in the press row. And they specifically told us that press seats were not to be saved. If your butt was in a seat, it was your seat. If your butt wasn't in a seat, it wasn't your seat. The traditional media went in and had producers put paper, like little, CNN, ABC, on whole rows of chairs in the press section. And the Secret Service came in and took them down. And so I was sitting with my friend Ken Harbaugh from the MeidasTouch Network, watch his show Against All Enemies, and because he saved my butt all last week. And man, I mean, I saw a New York Times reporter lose her mind. There was a guy from a traditional news outlet, a print journalist, I didn't get his name. When he saw the seats were full, he went down our row saying, "Are you media? Are you media? Are you?" It was unreal. They were accosting us, and because of their rights not being followed, worshipped. And I wrote a thread on Twitter about this. And what I talked about was that Thursday, we were all supposed to be in the arena early, but the Veterans and Military Family Council was having a meeting at the McCormick Place. It was tricky because we were getting messages from 8 a.m. on saying, creators, press, don't wait. Go to the arena at noon if you can to get seats, because they knew it was going to be full. Because believe me, they don't just sell tickets. They don't sell seats at the DNC. They sell access. And there's not enough seats for everybody. So if you're not a seat, you don't get a seat. And so a lot of people went over there. But I heard common sense told me that where Tim Walz had been appearing at various caucuses and councils throughout the week, he'd never appeared at the Veterans one. And I just thought, if I was going to appear at any as Tim Walz, it would be the Veterans Council. So I got hold of my friend Terrence Sims, who was our guest 2 weeks ago. He definitely told me that Wes Moore is going to speak. And I'm a big fan of Wes Moore. So I took a risk. I went to the McCormick Place at 2:45, sat in the Veteran and Military Family Council meeting, and I was the only media there. And Representative Houlihan spoke, Don Byers spoke, Representative Byers spoke, actor Busy Phillips spoke, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland spoke, and I was the only media person there. 15,000 credentialed media at the DNC, and the only person who showed up at the Veteran and Military Family Council was yours truly. And because of that, I was offered an interview with Representative Houlihan, which didn't go through because she herself got rushed over to this convention center or the arena. But I did get to talk to Busy Phillips, the actress, an interview I was completely unprepared for, by the way, which you may have seen on last week's show. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. She's a lovely person that was very patient with me, trying to figure my stuff out in real time. But that's what happened. So for all their talk about how it wasn't fair, how there was 200 of us and they didn't have our privileges, all I did was get the exact same press release they did about the councils, click on the exact same form they did to register for council meetings, to go and to RSVP and fill out your media credentials. And then I went. And with 15,000 media bitching for a week about how they didn't have access and we had special privileges, this creator, this 58-year-old veteran, was the only one who showed up. So I'm pretty tired of the political media right now, which takes us to our next story, Arlington National Cemetery. So you may have seen, you guys have heard that, well, you probably saw this. This gibbering idiot standing in Arlington Section 60 with his thumb in the air and a big grin at a grave of a fallen Marine sergeant from Afghanistan with members of her family, not her whole family, but members of her family. So I'm sure you've heard the story already. On Tuesday, they staged an event, a wreath laying at Arlington with Trump. There's a lot of details that I'm going to have a live tonight with my friends from VoteVets about it. But the bottom line is we're pretty sure it was fake, that the Trump campaign set it up. NPR was the first to break the news. I'm going to cough. That that this had happened and that the family had gone there. But what was really important in this story is that the Trump campaign, look, by law, you're not allowed to film, or excuse me, the law is there's no political activity allowed in Arlington National Cemetery. Political activity, campaign activity. Arlington turned him down. Here's the rules right here. Because of the Hatch Act, partisan activities are inappropriate in Arlington at all times, right? They don't endorse political parties. They don't allow it. So when they got word Trump was coming, they knew what it was about. They said no. And the Speaker of the House pressured them to let him in. And they said, okay, as long as he follows the rules. So they let him in. But the spokesman there and the PAO staff, public affairs staff, tried to stop them from filming campaign commercials in Section 60. There was a shouting match. She was shoved, and they did what they wanted, put a TikTok up the next day attacking President Biden from live footage they shot in Arlington Cemetery, just for that. The political media jumped in, to their credit. NPR is covering it. New York Times is covering it, a couple others. But for the most part, folks, I'm shooting this Thursday afternoon. Political press has kind of moved on. Next scandal. And they will. Now, Trump being Trump, they're going to keep making it worse. But the Trump campaign thinks they won and they're done. But I'm going to tell you a little secret, you guys. What's different about this story? This story isn't just political. It's also military. So my phone has been ringing off the hook all day today and yesterday from defense journalist, the Pentagon press corps. Now, I'm going to take time on this show to tell you how much I love the Pentagon press corps. Okay. And we have one sponsor. I'll have to make sure we get that break for our sponsor. Matter of fact, before we go to that, let's take a short break for our sponsor.
Hey, let's face it. After a night out with drinks, I do not bounce back the way I used to when I was in my 20s as a young officer in the United States Army, full of strength, where we drink all night, then go working out the next morning. And lately, it's been not as easy since I'm a grandpa now. That is until I found Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol. Now, pre-alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted to a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Now, pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make your Z-Biotics your first drink of the night, then drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Look, I won't lie. I don't hit the clubs anymore. I'm not that guy. But what I do is I take my partner and we go to outdoor concerts here in our town. We will sit down in the heat of the sun in the summer. We'll drink wine. We'll drink beer. And it kind of sneaks up on you. And the next thing you know, you're feeling a little bit under the weather. So I decided to give Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol a shot. And man, what a difference. Believe me, it is the real deal. So for vacations, weddings, birthdays, reunions, there's so much going on. Get the most out of your summer plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. So it's easy. Go to zbiotics.com/Fred to get 15% off your first order when you use Fred at your checkout. Pre-alcohol is back with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So I'm going to go back to it again. Just make sure it's clear. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Fred. Use the code FRED, F-R-E-D, at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, as always, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and for the good times you help me continue to have.
And we're back. So the Pentagon press corps is not the political press. Pentagon press corps has sources in the military. They actually have an office in the Pentagon. They regularly interact with Pentagon public affairs people. They regularly interact with the Secretary of the Army and his staff. Okay? They're not the political press. A public affairs official was the person this crew shoved. They hang out with public affairs people. They get along with public affairs people. They know who they are. They know the rules of Arlington National Cemetery. They know the rules of the military and partisan activity. And let me tell you, folks, the good news is, thanks to the Pentagon press, this story is not over. There's going to be a number of stories digging up. Well, while the spokesman herself says the Army put out a shocking statement today saying that about the fact that this occurred, an incident did occur. There was an incident where military police were called, and she has decided not to press charges. But the Army actually put out an official statement saying that they never do partisan stuff. That's how significant this is. So here's the question. Who filed the parade request, or the wreath laying request? You see, Arlington conducts 3,000 wreath layings a year for private parties. That's what this was. That's why Biden wasn't there. That wasn't an official event. That was an event the family put together, which is perfectly legal. They invited Trump, but the truth is the campaign did it. But that's why Biden wasn't there. It wasn't an official event for the president of the United States to attend. He wasn't invited. So saying Biden wasn't there is a lie. But here's the question. There's paperwork you fill out. Who filled it out? Was it a family member of a fallen Marine, or was it a Trump campaign official? FOIA, baby. Freedom of Information Act. That's getting FOIA right now. How about that police report with the Fort Myer Henderson Hall Military Police Station? FOIA. It's a public record. I guarantee you right now, defense journalists are asking for that record. I think by the time you watch this show tomorrow, it's probably out in the public domain already. You see, they're messing with the wrong people this time. They're messing with veterans. They're messing with Pentagon press, who also respects Arlington National Cemetery and isn't going to put up with the idea that it's okay for them to be ignored. It's not okay for them to use Arlington for a political stunt. So it's going to be an interesting week with that, because the Pentagon press corps is not the Washington press corps, the political press. And this story is going to have legs. And I think that's the difference we saw. Mark Knoller from CBS, he's retired from CBS. He tweeted something yesterday about Vice President Harris having her first interview with CNN tonight. You'll see it tonight as I'm recording this, with her nominee for vice president at her side and bashing them. And he literally tweeted that the first question to Vice President Harris in her first sit-down interview since accepting the nomination of the Democratic Party, after the media she hasn't done interviews, he thinks her first question should be, why does she think it's appropriate to do her first interview with Tim Walz next to her and not more or by herself or something? Who fucking cares? Who cares? Who cares why she did the interview or with whom she does it or who's by her side? You see, that's the problem with the media. The political press thinks it's about them and not us, not you and me, not you viewers, not you listeners. The political press thinks it's about them and their next book and their access. They were mad at the DNC, at us creators, because we were there with the same pass as them. And they didn't get special privileges. They didn't get to have their VIP treatment. No, they were just pressed like us. I hustled my ass off at the DNC. I stalked Media Row. You know how I got Moskowitz? He was doing an interview with Sirius XM. And when he was talking, I grabbed his staffer and said, "Give me your guy. You owe me." I showed him the text messages for the last year where I've been trying to get Jared Moskowitz on my show. And he said, "You're right, I owe you. I'll get him when he comes off." So I set my camera up behind the screen and waited to ambush Jared Moskowitz for 5 minutes. Ended up being a great interview. That's how I did my job. I didn't have special privileges. I had the exact same privileges they did. And that's what made them mad. And that's why they're mad that Kamala Harris isn't doing an exclusive interview with them. Because it's about them. And here's where we start at my show and my friends at the MeidasTouch Network. My first question when I do an interview is, what do you care about? What are you going to care about? If you're watching this show and you're my typical audience, I read your comments, you know that. What do you care about? What would you want to know from this person? And my second question is, thought I could, if when I interview somebody, and I hope you've seen it, I love to watch their other interviews they've done recently, and I'll listen for when they get asked a question that clearly got cut off. They're only given 30 seconds to answer, or the interviewer missed a chance to pull more from the question. So I'll write those down. And that's what you see often on my show. You'll hear me say, I saw you on NPR the other day, and you asked an interesting question. And I feel like you had a lot more to say about it. Tell us about that. And then they go from there, because my subjects want to talk about certain things. So I had the opportunity to interview Abigail Spanberger. It's kind of a funny behind the scenes story. I actually hot seated with my friend Ken Harbaugh. Ken got the studio. So the studios were really hard to get. You had to put in for studios at the DNC. And they were really hard to get, very competitive. Again, all the media is competing for these studios. It was really cool. I mean, you just walk in, they start recording for you, put it on a stick. And I didn't get any. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm a neophyte. I'm a Luddite. I didn't get any studio time. But Ken did, because he's awesome. And Ken got me a spot. He goes, hey man, I'm interviewing Abigail Spanberger. I said, great. She and I literally hung out with her. And he's like, I said, I'd love to talk to her. He goes, great. He goes, let's do this. I'll do the first half, the half hour. You have the second half. I said, great. What are you going to talk about, Ken? He goes, well, my show is more national security. Against All Enemies is very much national security stuff. I said, great. My show is about democracy. So Ken spent 15 minutes talking to Representative Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat nominee for governor of Virginia. He talked about national security issues because she's a former CIA agent as well. When he got out, I put his microphone on, I sat down in a chair, and she and I talked about the impact of Project 2025 on Virginia. When Schedule F is implemented, how many thousands of Virginians and veterans are going to find themselves out of work because they donated to a Democratic party or a Democratic candidate? What's that going to do to the economy when they start spending money in small businesses like my daughter's soap store? What does that mean? And we talked for a good 5-10 minutes about that, because that's what I think she would want to talk about. It's one of her big issues. But I think it's interesting to you guys who watch a show called On Democracy. Political reporters, who knows, they would have asked, how's your chances? How much are you spending on ads? I heard your opponent said this about you. Who gives a shit about that? What we do give a shit about is real stuff that impacts you as an American citizen. Real stuff like losing your job because you gave to a Democratic candidate, or overthrowing our government with this outrageous stuff from Project 2025. That's how I drove my creation. And that's why the political media is losing viewers and followers. And that's what I told them on Twitter and to their faces. You're losing. And you're losing because people are sick of your BS. They're sick of the both sides. They're sick. Literally, one of the first headlines to come out of the Arlington story, Trump broke a federal law, you guys. That rule I showed you is a federal law. They broke a law. They conducted partisan campaign activity at Arlington. Literally, one of the headlines was competing stories about Trump. Something along those lines. It's like, okay, there's no competing story. Everybody says what he did, and he's lying about it. It's not a competition. It's not, well, he said he's lying because there's video. Why do we know he shot an ad at Arlington? Because they put it out the next day. There's no if, ands, or buts. They issued a TikTok video shot that day attacking President Biden and Vice President Harris. There's no alternate facts. They issued the video. But the traditional press has to do this both sides bullshit you're all so sick of. So that's why 200 creators went to the DNC. That's why they're big mad. And that's why we don't care. And the DNC today says that they generated over 700 million impressions from the 7,000 posts that the 200 creators did. And folks, that doesn't include us. That doesn't include the thousands of you that watch my show, the thousands of you that watch my videos, and hopefully hundreds of thousands of you that are going to watch this show tonight on the MeidasTouch network. So that's where we are. Now, last thing, I should have done a graphic. Yay, 100 episodes. I can't let you go without thanking you. My bad voice. I'm going to take a drink, okay? Thank you. I started this show. I left a job, and I was at home, kind of just mulling around. And if anybody knows me, I'm not the kind of guy who lays around easily. And my now fiance said to me, she goes, you always rush from job to job since you were 17 years old. I started work at the age of 14. It's not on my resume. I know there's a scandal about Kamala Harris not having McDonald's on her resume. But my first job was 14 years old, was a busboy at a country club in St. Louis, Missouri. I got a work permit. The maitre d' made me promise not to tell people I was only 14 because I looked older. The next year, I got my lifeguard certificate. And as soon as I turned 16, I was a lifeguard at the same club. much more respectable. And then the next summer, I went to West Point. I went to the Army. And after I graduated from West Point, I went to the Army. And then I was 17 when I went in the Army. And after the Army, I went in the professional, went back in the Army because they had a war, 9/11. I've always had a job. The longest I've ever been unemployed was a month. And that's when I started my own company after a month. So my fiance said, hey, why don't you take a break and do something you like for a minute? I said, I think I'll start a video show. I'd been doing a little bit of a podcast. If you guys listen to the original show on Call In, owned by David Sachs. There's a story there. I'm not on Call In anymore. That's for damn sure. But I didn't really like the format or the show or the platform. So I rented a studio, as you guys know, Half Coast Studios in Creve Coeur, Missouri. And I started doing my show on a YouTube channel we just created. I think the first show got 200 views, which is great. Started building a YouTube channel. And then a couple of months later, I reached out to my friends at the MeidasTouch Network, Ben, Brett, and Jordy, and said, hey, fellas, I know I'm not your typical show. This is a studio format show. Would you be interested? And they said, yes, send us your latest show. And I sent them the show with our friend Dennis Aftercut, and 140,000 of you showed up to watch it. 140,000 people showed up to watch with no announcement on a Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. 140,000 of you watched my show in 2 days. Anyways, my friends at the MeidasTouch Network brought me on, and now I'm every Friday night at 11 on the MeidasTouch Network. And here we are, 100 episodes later. And the funny part of that story is my fiance at the time said, let me get this straight. You're going to drop X amount of money on a hobby? I said, yes, because you dress for the job you want. And here we are. And because of you, because the Meidas Mighty, because the On Democracy Faithful, because of those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, because of you that follow me on social media, 100 episodes later, we're still here getting, I don't know, sometimes 20,000, sometimes 700,000 viewers. You share my clips and you know who I am. The most humbling thing that happened in Chicago was you guys, you fans, and you know who you are. Several people are hopefully watching, grabbing me at events, the Vote Vets Veterans event, grabbing me at Simon Rosenberg's Hopium event to thank me and take pictures with me and say hi. So if you ever do see me out, don't be shy about reaching out. I love talking to you guys. We took a bunch of selfies. I hope you post them. It was amazing. And the funniest one, I'll leave you where how far we've come, you guys, because of you. I met Sean Astin. You may have seen the, okay, it's pretty cool. He's a great guy. I met Sean Astin at Simon Rosenberg's event. You saw him speak on last week's show. The funny part of that story is I met Sean because Simon said, hey, go meet Sean Astin. He's great. You're going to let him on. I walk up to Sean Astin. He says, oh my God, it's like looking in the mirror. Because it is. We look a lot alike, except I have a scruffy gray beard. And we were really talking quite a while. So throughout the evening, I was sitting there talking. People were coming up and saying hi to him, getting selfies with him. And he's just a wonderful human and took every single one of them. While we're talking, he says, look, dude, give me your phone. I want to put my number in your phone, which is cool. He takes my phone. And while Sean is texting my number into his phone, one of you, and I hope you're watching, ma'am, a nice lady came running up, coming towards us. I thought, oh, another Sean fan. And she went by Sean and said, Fred Wellman, it's so good to meet you. I watch your show. I follow you on Twitter. I love what you do. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your voice. Thanks for everything you do for us. Can we get a picture? And we turned and pushed Sean Astin out of the way to take a picture. She walked away and thank you. I hope you post it somewhere. Tag me at FP Wellman on Twitter, FP Wellman Official on Instagram. And Sean Sean was laughing so hard because he wanted to see me. And I'm just a kid from Kirkwood, Missouri, who went in the Army, started this as a hobby at 56 years old. And because of you guys, I'm able to do this. I'm able to meet Sean Astin and Busy Phillips and Jared Moskowitz. And the list is unbelievable. The guests of the show, my friend Alex Vindman, Bill Crystal. I mean, the famous people have been on this show. It's humbling to meet the people and the other people who I've worked with because of you watching 100 episodes of this show. So with that, I'll let you go. But I just want to give you a heartfelt thank you for being part of the On Democracy show, the On Democracy community. Be sure to, I'd just love for you to subscribe, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have On Democracy Pod on Twitter. We have the YouTube channel as well. It'd be wonderful if you signed up there. Just come join us, come join the movement, and say hi when you see me. And in the meantime, thank you for everything you do. Hopefully I'll have my voice back next week. We'll do a couple good shows. I got a great show coming up. And in the meantime, you make the difference. The one thing I learned at the DNC is that we are going to be the ones that turn this country around. We're the ones that have to do it together. And I know we can. So thanks for being a part of this movement. Get in the fight, and I'll see you next week.